top non-conference games in 2025. These are the ones that could have massive implications on the SEC championship and going to the college football playoff. Because remember that Texas A&M and LSU both lost in week 1 last year. But here's the thing. There was a shot for both of them still to make it down to Atlanta going into the middle of November because they were non-conference losses. So don't look now, but these games could actually have significant implications on which teams are still fighting for a spot in the 12-team playoff. First one, I think, is Auburn versus Baylor. Baylor was one of the hottest teams in college football down the stretch last year. They won 6 games. Dave Aranda saved his job. Sawyer Robertson, really good quarterback. They were one of the better teams in college football that did not get enough graces. But Auburn, so far, has been one of the better teams in the transfer portal this offseason. They've done a good job of bringing in premier talent. They got a better quarterback in Jackson Arnold. They feel really good about their number 1 wide receiver in Eric Singleton. And this feels like a must-win year for Hugh Freeze. It is critical down on the plains for Hugh Freeze to start off hot. We will know a lot about what Auburn is, what Auburn has to fix, who Jackson Arnold is underneath this new direction, what Sawyer Robertson can be moving forward. Down in Waco week 1, it is a game that is not getting enough love, but I promise you, it is one that will have implications for both the Big 12 and for the SEC. Naturally, LSU Clemson, that's got to be the biggest game. If you told me that that's a playoff preview for whether it be the quarterfinals, whether it be the semifinals, whether it be even a national championship, I could believe it. I'm high on both schools. I am. I know that we are an SEC entity, but I believe that the 2 best quarterbacks in college football will be playing in that game down in the other Death Valley. I got Kate Klubnik as QB1. I got Garrett Nussmeier as QB2. This feels like a must-win year for both programs in different directions. Everyone is buying stock into Clemson being the top team in the ACC, and for good reason. They got the quarterback. They got a better offense. They finally made some moves that were different underneath Dabo Swinney, and they've been building to that direction for the last few years. This feels like an all-in, hey, we are still the cream of the crop of the ACC. And then you look at LSU, they pivoted. They went from having all of their money and resources put into the Bryce Underwood sweepstakes and said, okay, let's go to work. We have portaled in talent like crazy. We believe that we are good enough to win this year. Clemson hasn't beaten a ranked SEC team since 2019. They will have a shot to do so on their home turf come August 31st. LSU hasn't won a home opener underneath Brian Kelly yet. He's 0-3. Last year against USC, back-to-back years against Florida State. This feels like a game to where if you want to set the tone early on, if you're LSU, proving that things are different down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that this is the year that we can finally start buying in hope, you got to win this one, and you got to win pretty convincingly. Texas, Ohio State, it's a rematch of the Cotton Bowl semifinal by logo, but it's a new regime of quarterback. It's Arch Manning's first start as QB1. Now, I'm not saying that it's not his first start because we saw him play a couple games last year, but it is his first start as QB1. There is no more security blanket. Quinn Ewers is not coming back in to save you. It's your job now. What's this offense look like? And what is the tone going to be like down in Austin? Because of you are replacing 3 starting wide receivers. You are replacing 4 starting offensive linemen. You do have a couple of new pieces that are added in defensively. I still believe Texas is the cream of the crop in the SEC. I have no doubt that they're going to be a player in the college football postseason picture. But then you got to throw in Julian Sayin, national champion. This team, so many people forgot about what Julian Sayin was. 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, goes to Alabama. Nick Saban retires. He also follows Caleb Downs to Columbus, Ohio. And just because we haven't seen him doesn't mean that he is not polished. I don't think that St. Clair is going to win the job. I truly believe that this is Julian Saying's team moving forward. A win here almost guarantees a home playoff game if they miss out on the byes. I think both these teams are going to the playoff next year. I am very high on what Ohio State can do. I know they've lost a lot offensively and defensively, but it's Ryan Day. It's Ohio State. They find a way to be able to portal in the right pieces. They find a way to land a top 5 recruiting class every single year. Winning this game in the shoe for either team really sets the tone for 2 rosters that believe they are good enough to win a national title. How about week 2, Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech? This is a sleeper game. So remember what we thought last year about Virginia Tech. Okay, well, what I thought last year about Virginia Tech. I thought they were going to be a sleeper going to the college football playoff. They were going to be that team that was like SMU. And lo and behold, remember what happened. The SEC got welcomed into Diego Pavia and what he was capable of. Took the game to overtime. Pavia gets the win. They set the tone. US Bank Stadium was still under construction. Like, you guys remember that when the Commodores were celebrating, there were like cranes and still construction sites in the background. They weren't a full stadium just yet. Well, now they're traveling to Blacksburg, where the best tradition in college football resides. Keep in mind also that Vanderbilt is going to play Georgia State week 1, and Virginia Tech is going to play South Carolina on a Monday night down in Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A opener. That's back-to-back SEC games. It's Brent Pry's fifth year. He has got to start showing that things are trending in the right direction. Things have got to start buying in to what the Hokies want to be, because if you eventually lose that morale, you lose that moral compass. You don't have that stability to be able to come back and say, well, we'll get him next year. You were supposed to have him last year with 97% returning production. So if you start off 0-2, is this the beginning of the end for change that is inevitable in Blacksburg for yet another head coach trying to be what actually Frank Beamer was for a while ago? Michigan versus Oklahoma in week 2. I think it's a fork in the road moment for the conference. I think it's a fork in the road moment for both these programs that didn't meet expectations last season. But I do believe that one of these teams could have a strong trajectory with a win. Michigan, one of the best ways to close out 2024. Win against Ohio State, win against Alabama. They did a good job of portaling in the right pieces. They get a new running back in Justice Haynes. They feel really good about the quarterback room. Mikey Keene maybe starts week 1. But week 2, we get the Bryce Underwood show. We feel really good about that direction. And then you got Oklahoma. Oklahoma brought in the right offensive coordinator, brought in the right quarterback. I think that they would be better on the offensive line. I still have high hopes for what this defense can be underneath Brent Venables. A win here, I think that gets you to 9 wins for either side. And both these teams, I think right now, there are so much unknowns about what they can be making the college football playoff. With a win in this game, that might end up signaling that change is coming, that we are in a good position to where we can win those games that are supposed to be toss-ups. For Oklahoma specifically, if they want to be an 8 or 9 win team next year, I think they have to win this game. If they don't, then we may be talking about change coming towards Norman by the end of the 2025 season. How about Kansas versus Missouri? The border war is back. This was peak hatred in the Big 8. For those of you who are too young, the Big 8 was before the Big 12. This is one of those games where I think peak SEC would lean and say a Big 12 roster that finished 5-7 last year, they can't march into Faurot Field and beat us. Oh, I politely disagree. Do not doubt Lance Leipold, Jalen Daniels, and a better version of the offense. It's a revamped unit on the offensive line. They have a very good wide receiver core. I still like their rushing attack. I hated Jeff Grimes as the offensive coordinator. He left to go to Madison this offseason. They promoted Zbikowski from inside. He's worked specifically with Jason Bean and Jalen Daniels. And I don't know what to expect from Missouri at this point. I like Missouri a lot. I think Missouri is a solid team with their schedule. 6 games out in Como before they ever hit the road. They could easily be the sleeper in the SEC, similar to Tennessee last year. But the last thing that you want to do is allow a Lance Leipold team to get hot. They may end up being what Arizona State was last year, where they beat an SEC team early on in the season. They use that morality to go ahead and pivot themselves into that conversation for a 10-win season. And Kansas, lo and behold, they're going to the college football playoff as the representative from the Big 12. Notre Dame plays host to Texas A&M in week 3. Last year, they was pretty close going into the fourth quarter. A lot of people look at that score and say Notre Dame handled business. No, it was a back-and-forth battle all the way up until the final 15 minutes. And then, unfortunately, you watch as Notre Dame's offense kind of took that next step forward. Jeremiah Love punching on in from the red zone. The defense wasn't good enough. That was Mike Elko's first game. That was Mike Elko's first game out in College Station. Well, now he's got a full year under his belt. And the offense is going to have to take that next step forward. The offense is going to have to be the backbone of this team, at least early on in the season. You get Marcel Reed back. You have solid run game with a healthy Lavian Moss, with a healthy Ruben Owens, who I think is going to do wonders for this offense, especially underneath Colin Klein. Casey Concepcion comes on in. Mario Craver is that vertical wide receiver. You like the offensive line for what's returning talent-wise. That should be the backbone. And again, Notre Dame, they'll be breaking in a brand new quarterback. They'll be breaking in some new wide receivers, some new defensive players. This is a moment where if you look at Texas A&M, and for all of us that still doubt Texas A&M, not being that team that can get over that 8-4 hump, they get this win. Now they're starting off potentially 3-0. Now they're gaining that momentum. And it shows you that Mike Elko has made the necessary changes from year 1 to year 2, that the team actually that we believe is still the same Aggies of old will not exist anymore. How about when the game tips off? The NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. Even if you miss the first few minutes of a game or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet win. Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today. That's FanDuel.com/SECU for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Disclaimer: must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, and 18 plus in DC. First online real money wagers only. $5 first deposit is required. Bonus issues with non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back to the show. How about Florida versus Miami in week 4? You know, that's a game where I think a lot of people are going to look at, well, what happened in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party where DJ Lagway gets hurt early on, but Carson Beck has 3 interceptions. Lagway actually looked like the better quarterback in that game. If you guys remember, had the big 43-yard touchdown pass to Aiden Mizell connected. Florida was leading going into halftime. They get hurt. Then you got to throw in Aiden Warner. When I look at where you are in terms of what Miami is, I have questions when it comes to their wide receiver room. I have questions when it comes to their offensive line. I really, really do think that when you look at DJ Lagway taking that next step forward, this is one of those games where, hey, year 1, probably not going to be built, probably not ready to go ahead and take control. Year 2, full season to learn underneath what a guy like Billy Napier wants, the buy-in from the culture, a solid defense that last year forced 3 interceptions against Carson Beck. You get to have that game out in Coral Gables, get that signature win, carry yourself. Florida, again, that's a team that a lot of people, I think right now, they have no idea what to make of them. They may end up being a team that finishes 6-6, 9-3. One of these games, that's enough to where we kind of go ahead and turn it. Okay, now Florida goes in that conversation of being an actual college football playoff team versus a team that maybe ends up missing out on a bowl game altogether. Notre Dame, Arkansas, week 5. The Irish have like 7 must-see games this year. They play Boise State, they play NC State, they play Texas A&M, they go to Fayetteville. And the thing that we know about Sam Pittman's rosters, they have a way of upsetting a team after a bad loss. Like, they found a way in 2021 to beat Lane Kiffin. Last year, they beat Tennessee. In 2020, they had 2 wins against top 25 teams. Really good, solid year with wins against Mississippi State and Texas A&M. That was 2021. My apologies. 2022 was like top 15 win against, Mississippi State. Still, is this one of those games where like Taylon Green balls on out and has like 365 passing yards and 3 touchdowns? What do we make about the run game with Russell, Braylon Russell being the lead guy? Does the defense find a way to force 2 or 3 turnovers? Is this one of those matchups? Because we know one thing about Arkansas, they're going to be the ranked team in 2025. I don't know who it is, but the fact that this game is at home, to me, does matter. And maybe that's a sign to where, okay, we are still holding out hope that Sam Pittman can be the right guy moving forward. And last and certainly not least, this one's a wild card, but I feel like I had to throw it in there. Mississippi State versus Northern Illinois. Dude, you lost to Toledo last year. Like, Mississippi State lost to a MAC team last year. I can forgive losing to Arizona State, a Big 12 team, because when you look currently at what Arizona State eventually was, they made the college football playoff. But you lost to Toledo, and it really wasn't a good game. It was a terrible game. It was awful by all means whatsoever. If you lose to Northern Illinois, who was just riddled by the transfer portal, you just got one of their star receivers in Thompson. I think at this point, you kind of figured out Jeff Lebby's not the guy. We got to go in a different direction. there are things that need to change if we want to get back to the level of consistency out in Starkville. To me, that is a game I am circling because of when you lose to one MAC team, I just got to see that you won't fall for it twice.